1 year ago, the Trump administration launched a new Afghanistan strategy. And while the administration touts the strategy as a success, the Taliban still threatens much of Afghanistan. From January to July of this year, there were over 1,600 civilian deaths. That's a record casualty rate for the civilian population there. And there have been multiple deadly attacks just over the last month. Kevin Hulbert is in Washington. He's a former CIA chief of station and a Cipher Brief expert. Kevin, thanks for joining us today. Kevin, it has been a year since the president launched a new Afghanistan strategy. Has the president's strategy moved the needle at all in Afghanistan?
Probably not as much as we would have liked. And I think the attacks a couple weeks ago in Ghazni kind of highlighted this idea that it might be time to rethink our strategy there.
So, Kevin, this war has been going on for over a decade, and as we just discussed, it seems to be there seems to be an uptick right now. Why can't we find a way to bring this to a long-term resolution?
Well, Afghanistan's tough, and it's a tough place to govern. And if it was easy and if there was a good solution, we would have thought of it a long time ago. So, as you point out, we've been doing this a long time now. We've been in Afghanistan about 17 years. It's a tough place to govern. It's a tough place to lock down. The challenge I think we're struggling with is that what we're doing, I'm not sure it's working. The Taliban seems to be resurgent. They now control, by our best estimates, by the U.S. government, U.S. Army estimates, 55% of the country. Other people have put that figure at 70 or 75%. And so I'm not sure we're going in the right way.
And there are several nations that have interest in the outcome of this war, including neighbors Iran, Pakistan, and Russia. Can you explain why we aren't just fighting the Taliban or ISIS, for instance?
Yeah, it's a difficult, challenging operating environment, and I don't think there are a lot of people who wish us well there. Certainly the Taliban doesn't wish us well, but I don't think Russia is hoping that we have a big success in Afghanistan, nor does Iran hope we have a big success in Afghanistan. And so you don't have a lot of people, working together for a common good end. We've got a lot of people who would like to see us fail in Afghanistan, frankly, and that's what makes it particularly difficult.
So it sounds pretty grim. Have there been any short-term successes that you can point to that indicate that there could be some progress in the nation?
Well, I think the biggest metric is we've not been attacked with a major terrorist incident from Afghanistan, emanating out of Afghanistan in 17 years, I think. 9/11 was a real wake-up call for us. 3,000 of our countrymen died. And after that time, we went into Afghanistan in a big way because we wanted to make sure that it was never again a safe haven for terrorists where they could find the space to train, to plan, and to launch attacks against the West. And so I think, writ large, on that metric, we've been very successful. What we have to think about now is, what's the best way to fight this fight? I think most thinking people agree that we shouldn't just walk away from Afghanistan because that's kind of ghosts of Iraq past. I mean, the place would not do well if we abandon it, and I don't think that's the right thing. And so we've got to think about, do we stay in Afghanistan forever with the same footprint we've had, about 15,000 American and coalition soldiers from CENTCOM, costing U.S. taxpayers about $50 billion a year? Or is there maybe a better, more thoughtful way to fight this fight?
Right. Well, so yeah, how do you balance then the sort of the lack of domestic appetite for sending, U.S. troops over there with the need to maintain security?
Yeah, that's a great question. And now I'm afraid we're doing just enough not to lose, but probably not enough to win. Mm-hmm. But I think where a lot of people err in this is they look at it as a binary choice, and the binary choice being, do we stay in Afghanistan indefinitely and spend $50 billion a year and have 15,000 troops deployed there forever, or do we leave? But I'd caution against looking at it as a binary thing. I think there's a lot of space in between leaving and the current footprint to do a lot of other thoughtful things. Right. I would move to a more Special Forces, Title 50, CIA-led effort.
Well, there has been talk of adding private contractors. Blackwater founder Eric Prince has pushed the Trump administration to add them. So do you think that that would help or hurt the ultimate goal there?
Well, I think Eric makes some very thoughtful points, and you know, he certainly is a big thinker on a lot of these things, and he's certainly worth listening to. I don't think private contractors is the end-all solution, but I think it's part of the solution, just as contractors have been part of the solution in Afghanistan and Iraq and places we've been in combat over the last decade. So I think there's definitely a role for it. I think what we need to remember, too, is that you know, we get stuck in this binary calculus of whether we stay or go. But you have to remember, we won. We defeated the entire Soviet military in Afghanistan without one boot on the ground, or very few boots on the ground. No big U.S. footprint there. We did it with Title 50 authorities, Special Forces, and CIA. And we're really good at that stuff. Right. And I think now we're a lot better positioned than we were in Afghanistan than we were at the time of 9/11. At the time of 9/11, in the lead up to that, we were all jammed up with bin Laden being in Tarnak farms, and we simply didn't have a lot of levers to pull. We didn't have a lot of assets in the area. We didn't have a lot of capabilities in the area. Now, 17 years later, I think it's a much, much different situation where we're in a much better position to fight this battle without the big U.S. military footprint.
Kevin Hulbert, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.